Hi, this is Romilly with Golden Circle Designs, and welcome to the 12th video of the year-long Stitch Dictionary videos. This week we're going to do cross-stitch, but not in the way those of you who do cross-stitch, counted cross-stitch know it. For freestyle embroidery, it's much more of a texture stitch, and while I'm going to teach the variations that you'll use in counted cross-stitch, I'll also link to the beginning counted cross-stitch video playlist that I have, and that'll be linked below in the description. But cross-stitch can be a lot of fun, and just to add as texture. Technically, the herringbone stitch we did a couple weeks ago is a cross-stitch. This one right here. Let's see. Yeah, this one way up here, or down here, up here. So this is a type of cross stitch in that the stitches cross. Cross stitch is just a straight stitch made with two stitches that cross. So for the right hand with cross stitch, we start on the left side and we work left to right just like we were reading. So if you bring the needle up, we'll go ahead and use the entire white space in here. You take a diagonal stitch. There's your straight stitch. To cross it, you come down, take another diagonal stitch, and there's your cross. You can do that just as is, all over. Just up, diagonal. It's just like making a cross on paper with a pencil. Up and down. Now if you're into counted cross stitch, you probably have learned the Danish Method. Crossing each piece individually is called the English Method. The Danish Method is you make a row of little diagonals, and you can do this in freestyle embroidery as well, and then you go back and you cross them as one. This isn't so good if you're going to be using, isn't as great a method generally if you're going to be using a variegated thread or an overdyed, because it does weird things to the colors. I'm about to say something that counted cross stitch people will choke on. Cross your stitches any way you want. If I'm crossing them this way, the way we just did with the bottom, I can suddenly, if I want a different texture, do another one. Oops. Let me pull that down. Let's do this a little bit further away. At this point, this direction was the first one. I guess I should have done it the other way. This time we're going to do this direction first instead of last. If you're doing counted cross stitch, in general you want all of the crosses to be crossed to the same direction. In freestyle embroidery, if you want it unified, you can do that. You may discover that you want this half of the design to be crossed this way and this half of the design to be crossed this way to make a different texture. That is fine. If you want everyone to alternate, that's fine too. Just do it. You can also cross them vertically. So, comes up here. In counted work, this is generally called a Greek cross because it stands on end rather than making an X. But it is the same stitch. There's an X. If you put it on a diagonal, it's an X. It is still a cross stitch. Up, down, over, oops, let's go this way, and cross. And like the diagonal one, you can do it the other direction so that You stitch the horizontal stitch first, and then come up and stitch the vertical. It does not matter which way you cross them. If you like the look of it, even if it alternates, that's a great thing. Have fun, and I'm going to switch over to the left hand now. Welcome back to left-handed cross stitch, and I've got my thread here. I'm going to pull that down in a away knot. This is blue. We're going to just go ahead and meet them. To go with the left hand, in general, cross stitch is done this way. It's just a straight stitch, and then you're going to bring your needle back up down here and up and cross so that that's a little X. In counted cross stitch, this style where you make every X individually, oops, let's see if I can tighten this, is called, whoa, let me see if that's still in there. Frame, yeah, okay. This, where you make every X individually, is called the English method. Again, if you're using two hands, you can keep one hand underneath and just keep stitching that way. The Danish method makes little rows. So, comes down and up. So you'd stitch your row of one direction, and then you'd come back, crossing them. Now you'll notice that I come from counted cross stitch, so all of my stitches tend to cross the same direction. When I stitch left-handed, they tend to cross this direction. When I stitch right-handed, they tend to cross the other direction. It doesn't matter. We've been doing the diagonal that goes this way on top. In freestyle embroidery, I can switch it if I want. And when they're really small stitches, that can change the way the light hits your fabric and your stitching, and it can give you more depth to change the direction. So if you wanted to do one direction one way, one direction the other, have them meet in the middle, that would be great. In some stitches with long-armed cross stitch, which we'll learn later, Portuguese ariolos rugs, not sure how it's pronounced. Oops, I changed color. Not intended. Okay, can be stitched. They change direction at every quadrant, so that could be really interesting. You can also, with freestyle cross stitch, change the direction so that they go vertical. And something I didn't show the right-handed folks, but you can make vertical stitches. You can even rotate them just slightly on the diagonal instead of an X. I'm thinking, no, I'm not sure what I was thinking, but you can make them longer, adjust the width, adjust the height, play with it. Oops. Like every embroidery stitch we learn, how you use it on the fabric creates your texture like a pen line if you were drawing or coloring. Your stitches are your brush strokes. So with embroidery, we're painting with thread. So enjoy, play with it, and I'll see you next week.